Let's bring in our legal experts now. Jesse Weber's a NewsNation legal contributor and a Law and Crime Network host. Neama Rahmani is a former federal prosecutor, and Robert Hirschhorn is an attorney and a jury and trial consultant. Great to have all three of you here. Neama, I'm going to start with you. The judge denied bail to Combs, saying he has a, quote, propensity for violence, and that he engaged in years-long violence and continues to be unable to follow the law, noting his last act of violence came after he knew he was under investigation. That's a scathing ruling by the judge, is it not?
It is, Elizabeth, and I'm as pro-prosecution as they come, but I think this was the wrong ruling by Judge Subramanian. The jury has spoken. The defense has a right to bail, in my opinion. If Combs were just charged of prostitution, which no prosecutor would do, every single judge in this country would give him some sort of bail. Now, I know the prosecution, they're trying to backdoor some of this evidence of force and coercion, and you can technically do that. Even acquitted conduct can come into sentencing. But look, you're a prosecutor. You got to take your loss and move on. I know this is the Southern District of New York. They're not used to losing. And look, I think Combs is a terrible human being, but as a prosecutor, you're supposed to pursue justice. You got to respect the jury verdict here. And this is nothing less than a complete and total loss. Prostitution was a layup, but in all the serious counts, the jury didn't believe the victims. They didn't even think that any of the racketeering acts happened, the bribery, the extortion, the arson. So I think Combs should be out on bail. I wouldn't be surprised if the defense files an appeal to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. I don't think they're going to be waiting till the October 3rd sentencing.
Yeah,
Elizabeth.
I think we heard Mark Agnifilo just say that the fight continues. You know, that they are not going to just take this and wait until October 3rd for a sentencing. Jesse, you know, we'll get to the jury verdict in a second, but I just one more question on the judge's ruling to keep him in jail pending sentencing. Did the defense lawyers' own language come back to haunt them? Because the defense lawyers, Combs' lawyers, admitted in both their opening and closing arguments that Combs beat women up.
Yeah, they're damned if to do, the damned if to don't. They admitted that he is basically engages in domestic violence because they were trying to make the point to the jury, yes, we're admitting the bad facts, but we're saying that is not a federal crime. The judge said, you admitted he's violent. One of the factors we have to determine, is he a danger to the community? And look, when you're doing a bail analysis, it's very different than anything else. You can include a lot more evidence, and there is a lot more leeway. It is on the burden for the defense to say that Sean Combs is not a risk of flight, that he's not a danger to the community. And clearly, as Neama was saying, while the circumstances might have changed and he was acquitted of the most serious charges, the factors didn't. And it's basically the same kind of bail analysis the judge was doing and prior judges were doing during the whole course of this criminal process.
Robert, the women who testified against Sean Combs at trial said they wrote letters to the judge this afternoon saying they remain afraid of him. But with this verdict, he's going to get out at some point in a year or maybe 4. It was up to, right?
Right. So look, they may have been afraid, but the system worked. I mean, prosecutors have to charge what the actual crime is. And Elizabeth, I've been coming on your show for a while now saying over and over, Frico, not Rico, that he's a swinger, not a trafficker. And that's exactly what the jury said. Listen, every single victim is going to be feeling the exact same way, but they got their voice heard. The jury decided the case. And now they've got to move on with their life. I mean, look, Diddy is a manipulative, condescending, arrogant, rich, famous abuser. He's a domestic violence guy. He's an asshole, but he's not charged with any of those things. What he was charged with, the jury convicted him on the Mann Act, that's the prostitution, and acquitted him of everything else.
Yeah.
It was the right verdict and a courageous jury.
Jesse, this means, you and I have been talking about this, this means the jury didn't believe Cassie and Jane when they said they were forced to do these things. They believed the text messages back then. They didn't believe their testimony now.
You know why it's surprising? You and I were talking about this yesterday. The jury came back with a jury question yesterday, and they basically asked for a repeat of testimony of 3 specific alleged instances of sex trafficking, one including the whole 2016 Intercontinental Hotel tape where Sean Combs was beating Cassie. And then shortly thereafter, they came back and said, we have a verdict as to these charges. And I said, I'm not convinced that he's going to be found guilty with respect to Jane, particularly because they didn't ask for a readback of testimony. There was a lot of great testimony with hers. But I was saying that quickly, they're probably going to find him guilty with respect to Cassie. And they didn't. And by the way, surprise, they were hung on racketeering. There's no way we can switch it. They come in today, and in an hour, they come back and say, we're not guilty. I would love to speak to the jurors and find out.
So would we all. Neama, are you surprised that they said that Cassie wasn't coerced, given the fact that there's an actual videotape of him beating her up and dragging her by her hair back to one of these freak-offs when she tried to get away?
I'm not surprised based on reading the tea leaves in this case. And look, I went on X yesterday and I predicted this verdict. So let me tell you why. First of all, the cross-examination of Cassie with the emails and text messages over 2 days was brutal. There was a reason the defense kept playing the freak-off videos. Obviously, we didn't see him, but I'm just guessing that it shows Cassie Ventura seeming to enjoy herself sexually. And the defense originally asked for 2 weeks for their case in chief. Then they go to 2 days. Then they go to 30 minutes just reading text messages into the record. So they felt very confident. Now, when juror 25 on day one says, I can't deliberate, reportedly, that leads me to believe he's a defense juror. If he came out and said right away, I'm guilty, I don't think the jurors would have delivered that note to Judge Subramanian. So now you have at least one defense juror, and a quick verdict in these types of cases where there's a lot of evidence is usually a defense verdict.
Yeah.
I always said there's a path to racketeering that excludes the sex crimes, maybe extortion, maybe bribery, maybe kidnapping. So I knew that they were not guilty on sex trafficking. The only chance the prosecution had of success in this case is to prove the racketeering. They had some jurors yesterday. Maybe they slept on it and had a change of heart today. But the fact that the jury came back not guilty on the racketeering leads me to believe that this was nothing less than just a complete and total loss by the prosecution. This ended up being the most expensive prostitution trial in American history.
It's unbelievable.
But it's not a total loss. And the reason it's not a total loss is the jury did convict him of man acts. So while they didn't get the major charges,
right,
the prosecution did get the other ones. And everybody, listen, when you get that summons for jury duty, I always say this. Don't try to get out of jury duty. Make sure you go down.
Okay.
Become a juror, be part of the process.
All right. Robert Hirschhorn, Neama Rahmani, Jesse Weber, thank you all so much for your expert legal analysis. So Sean Combs was alleged to be running a criminal racketeering operation, yet he was the